Hello, you guys. How are you all? Thank you guys for being here. Dang, what a good intro. Thank you, Jen, for making that intro for us. Bendy created that. I'm going to bring her up in just a sec. I just want to say a quick hello to you guys. I'm looking forward to this. So this is a new case to my channel. And yeah, I mean, I didn't even know the things that were in the intro. I'll be honest. I had heard a little bit here and there listening to Deets. And once Jen and I talked about and made the decision that we were going to do this, which honestly, my idea came from Jen anyways. She used to do a series called From the Notes from the Jury Box. So we are digging into this trial as if we were jurors. We are not looking into all the extra headlines afterwards. I'm following the rules that the jury has. I did take notes. I took a lot of notes, and we're going to go through that. I'm going to bring her up. Let me just say hello to you guys really quick, and then we will get started. So hello, Christine, Destin, my lady. Hey, Neat Noodle. Hey, Claus, Sexy Wild Thing, Sober McLovin, Freaking Claus. MK, Debbie Doodles, Harlot. Hey, Bodine, Becky P. Let's see. Trinity, good to see you. Hey, Teacup, Preschool Granny. I saw Rockabit was in here. First time here. We'll be listening to get your perspective. Awesome. Well, I can't wait. Thomas, thank you for being here. Anybody that I missed, hey, Victoria, Shelly Beans, thank you all for being here. Let me go ahead and bring Jen up. Hello, Jen. Dang, I love that intro. Awesome job.
Thank you. Hey, babe, how are you?
I was like so stressed out until I started watching that intro, and then I'm just like, I am in it. I am here for it. Where you put us as juror number 20 and 21. I love it. I just love it. It's awesome.
Well, I might have been a little too quick with the numbers because I think there was something with the juror today. So I think we might be juror number 19 and 20 now. I think they're down to 18 jurors, but listen, I ain't fixing it. That intro took me too damn long. It took me a lot to get our little, that where it zooms in those 2 times to hit right on the beat, to get all the word, the type to hit at the beat. And I'm not doing that again. I mean, I like the way it looks, but I ain't fixing our juror numbers. We're going to be juror number 20 and 21, the end.
That's it. Oh, well, I thought you did great. Hey, Disorder in the Court. So I know that I just talked to Lynn, Disorder in the Court. she is streaming the trial. I know that she's going to be streaming it tomorrow morning, but I want her to come and join us, Jen, and maybe have some conversation. I know you're down for that. So.
Oh, absolutely. I want to have people who actually followed the whole thing, because there's a lot of behind the scenes, and I used to know some of it, but then what had happened was when it got closer to the trial and I learned that it was going to be streamed, then I started thinking, shoot, maybe I should just do it like I used to do things. And so I made sure that my brain got that, all that data was overwritten in my brain. And so hopefully it won't come back. I'm trying to keep it, like Allie said, the deal that is, we want to keep it as pure as possible. And I know, like, there's a ton of people that are really good people that are covering the case that are going to stream it, but this is just the way I think it'll be fun to do it this way. Plus, if you don't know anything about the case, you'll be right here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of people are covering it, but I think a lot of the people that I know that are covering it know a lot of the background history. And, I was even thinking today, because I was taking notes, and I took a lot of notes. We're going to go through them, but I thought, because I kept pausing, and I was like, wait, the jury doesn't get to pause to take their notes. So should I even be able to do that? Or should I just have to write what I can get, which is hard, because they threw a lot of information out at us today.
Well, technically, if as a juror, they were not allowed to take notes during opening statements, because opening statements are not evidence.
Well, I know they're not evidence, but I didn't know they could.
Well, that's what the judge said. I'm only repeating what the judge said. That's literally what she said. She said, I'm not going to, no note taking. You'll get the notebooks after opening statements, because the opening statements are not evidence. That's what she said. And
now,
then
I heard the evidence, but not the notes.
Yeah. So they're allowed to take notes, but I didn't take notes because I never take notes. Right. And that's going to be a problem, because I also was flipping back and forth a little bit in the testimony between what was going on with Karen Reed, but also with Daybell, right? Because I still want to talk about that trial too. Fortunately, Daybell is on a break tomorrow. I don't know what they're doing, and it doesn't really matter, but so I'll be able to focus solely on Karen Reed. But yeah.
Well, okay.
So I'm probably going to need like a cheat sheet, babe, because to be quiet, I didn't take no damn ass notes.
Well, I got you. Well, I should have sent pictures of my notes. So I have to take them for us to even be able to have this live stream, and you know what I mean, to be able to get through point by point. And even though it's not technically evidence, the opening statements are meant to tell a story. They're meant to basically, and like the prosecutor described it, like a roadmap to the witnesses that are going to testify, and kind of just give like a broad explanation of it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, and I feel like I learned a lot. Thank you, MK, for gifting 5 memberships. But tomorrow we'll be on your channel, and I'll just send you the notes that I take, and or you know what I mean, we'll figure it out to where we have. Like,
I haven't. Okay. So I think the way Allie and I are going to do it is, we're going to alter, like we did with what's her face, Letitia and Lori. I'm not going to call her Vallow. Lori Daybell. I'm call her what she wants to be called. She married the fool. Anywho. So the days that it's my turn to host, I will stream Daybell. The days that it's Allie's turn to host, I will stream Reed. That way we get a little bit of everything. Yeah, I kind of want to stream a little bit, just because sometimes I have a very difficult time focusing just in general. So yeah. Like that's why that video took me so long. It's not a very complicated video to make. It's 2 minutes. But I kept getting distracted.
That was great.
Well, thank you. But I mean, it's not like a documentary or anything, so I've done harder shit. But I'm just saying, like, I just get distracted. I need help.
Don't worry. I'm going to keep you on. And Nurse Kristen, I got you too, because I took very detailed notes, and I'm going to walk through the notes and our opinions of, like, you tell me what you think, I'll tell you what I think.
Okay.
Will B says, I watched a video a while back and was convinced Karen Reed was being framed. Watched another one from law enforcement experts and was convinced she was guilty. I have no clue, to be honest. So, okay, first I want to say, in my notes, and I wrote this down, it's really interesting because some trials we get to watch from, like Judge Stephen Boyce, we get to see from where he's sitting. You can't see Chad's face. You can't hardly make out expressions. Even with Letitia, it was very hard to see. They have the cameras right up on her. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to watch her body language, her facial expressions, all of those things, because we get a really clear view of that. Now, Jen, is this normal? Because I had never heard this before. Maybe it's happened and I just didn't hear it. But she said, the judge said, don't just pay attention to their words, pay attention to their appearance and how they testify, not just what they say. And I thought that was really interesting because she's like, no, watch their body language, watch everything. I mean, it's a given, but I've never heard a judge like point it out like that.
I don't think that I've actually ever heard that particular instruction either, or suggestion. Usually the judge will just simply say what their job is, what each side's job is, what the jury's job is, and will give something like, they'll say something to the effect of, it is up to you to listen to the testimony, and you put whatever weight on that testimony, that's up to you. At the end of the day, the way that the jury system works is the jury is the finder of the facts. And so it's up to them to listen and decide, and I would imagine that it's something that's really subconscious. I mean, I do it all the time, that I, when I'm listening to somebody, I'm listening to what they're saying. I'm listening to the question that they're being asked. And then I watch how they answer and I listen to the answer. And I think most people do that. I think it's just an unconscious thing. So like, but I've never, to answer your question, see, there I go with my Miss America answers again. To answer your question, no, the answer is no, I've never heard that before. So y'all can just, on the replay, just skip through all that. Because yeah.
Well, okay, so let me just go ahead and jump in because with the prosecutor, his name's Adam Lally, and I put him on the screen. That's him. I don't know if I grabbed a picture of the defense attorney that did the opening, which, okay, we'll get into that in a second because I have so many thoughts. But, okay, it starts out with, he describes to the jury, I'm basically going to give you a map connecting witnesses. He said, tells us John O'Keefe is 46 years old. And remember, you guys, this is all I know about the case. This is all Jen knows, what we're learning here. So my notes, maybe there were other things that were said that I didn't hear, but this is like, my notes really reflect what I know, which is interesting. So we have John O'Keefe, 46 years old. He does name his parents and his siblings. He had a brother and a sister. His sister and her husband both had passed away. And John actually took care of their kids, which, for one, to open with that, I mean, my God, what an amazing man. What an awesome thing to do. You are a single man and you take these two little kids, think they were ages 6 and 3. I mean, that came out later in the brother's testimony, I believe exactly their ages, but right there, I think that was purposeful, right? To get us like, this is a good man. This is a police officer who has taken in, his siblings' children. And in my opinion, I felt like that's how that kind of came across. Which it did make an impact on me. What about you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. See, here, the thing about a trial is this. The trial, although you would think that it is about the victim, it's actually not. It's really about the defendant, because the state has a burden of proof, right? So they have to prove this defendant did these crimes that they've alleged, right? So you might hear a little bit about a victim or victims in the opening statements, right? But the rest of the trial is really focused on the defendant. I mean, of course, there's times when like the autopsy, stuff like that. But as far as who the victim is, that's pretty much when you hear it, is at the opening statements, maybe a little bit through some testimony. And then, should there be a guilty verdict, then, victim impact statements. But yeah, the sister had cancer and died.
glioblastoma. Yeah, she had a very aggressive brain tumor. I tried to hear exactly what kind, but I don't know if I got it right.
But I don't know what happened to their father.
Oh, I don't recall either. It was 3 months later. It was very quick.
Yeah.
I don't recall either, Jen. Hey, Riley. Hey, Bodine. He absolutely was a police officer. However, no one on the prosecution side ever calls him officer. It is disgusting. Well, the next thing I wrote was he worked in the sex offender unit. That was the words that he said today. That's what he called it. So that's why I wrote it that.
Yeah.
So in 2018, John and the kids moved into a new home. Let me see. The niece was 14 when he passed. The nephew was 11. They're now 16 and 13. So they get into January 28th of 2022. So he says, on that day, there was a blizzard coming, basically letting us know that people knew this was going to happen. They were canceling events ahead of time and things like this. Let's see, I put 128, niece accepted to private school. Friends came over to celebrate. Michael and Catherine Camarano. There's so many names in this, which I did not try to keep up after a minute. I was like, okay, because I'm sure the jury cannot remember every name either immediately.
No. But they will when they start to testify. So yeah.
Yes. And that's I'm not used to the way that he did this opening statement. I don't know. I didn't think it was that effective running through each individual, the way that he did it. I feel like you kind of get the story when they come to testify, like you said, then you get to find out who they are and all the things. I don't know. It was interesting the way that he did it. Detailing all the witnesses. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have to say that for me personally, I did feel myself getting a little lost about who was who and how they were all connected and stuff. And as we move through the trial, as the witnesses testify, even though for me, I will have to write it down. And so whatever it is I write down, I will just make a little graphic for us so that we can keep track of it too. Huh?
I think that we should. Yeah. I thought about that today. There needs to be some visuals. I'll tell you another point in the defense's opening. I think a graphic would be useful. But thank you, Christine. Thank you for your hard work and integrity. I appreciate that so much. And hey, Angie. Okay. But we have this Michael person who was a friend of John's, and John and Michael went to a restaurant and bar that night. Kurt Roberts, another friend, came. Eventually, Karen joins them around 9 p.m. Karen, and I thought this was interesting, they met in 2004 and dated briefly, but then reconnected in 2020. We learned that today. Karen did stay with John and the kids a few times a week. In the month leading up to John's death, the relationship soured. And he points out, some different things, which I go into my notes more later. But I think all relationships, there's fights and stuff like that. Just because they have a fight in Aruba or this or that, I don't know. Relationships, there's ups and downs, especially when you're raising two kids that your niece and I don't know. I could just see a lot of reasons for ups and downs.
Yeah, okay. And I'm going to say this because this is just from my overall perspective of the opening statements from both sides. To me, what I took away from the opening statements from both sides was basically that it seemed to me anyway, that a lot of the fights that they had and arguments were fueled by alcohol. And it's always been my experience that there are two types of drinkers in this world. There might be a third, but I've never met this third drinker. There are the fun people there are people who are fun when they drink. Then there are the people who get emotional when they drink. this is when they want to have like deep, serious talks with you, and and they ask questions that they don't want the answer to. And then when you give them the answer to the question that they asked, even after you ask them, "Are you sure you want me to answer this question?" Then they get mad at you, A, for answering it, and then B, for the answer, and then they're intoxicated, and so they can't like. It's just too much. They're all up in their emotions. And obviously you can tell by my description that I am the first type. I don't like I mean, I don't prefer the second type. I can't handle it. When I want to have a good time, that's what I'm out to do. I'm not trying to, to have deep, conversations. It's not the right time. And it just brings, me down. So
That's a good point, though.
Kind of what it seemed like.
Yeah, that's a great point, because alcohol definitely makes things like that. And yeah. Okay, so on January 29th at 6 a.m., police get a call that John's found outside of a residence. When police arrive, 3 females are seen outside the home. We have Karen and 2 other women, and we know one of those women is McCabe. Let me see.
Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts are who found, or who went over to the house with Karen.
Now,
found
John. The McCabe is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
The things that we're going to talk about that come out in that. Go ahead, though. What were you going to say?
No, that's all I was going to say, is that they all met. No, two of them met. Is it McCabe? I think McCabe met Karen Reed. No, Karen drove to Jennifer McCabe's house. I think Carrie Roberts was already there. And then I think Jennifer McCabe drove the 3 of them back to the Alberts residence. That's the house this after party took place at. And then they see they find John O'Keefe, and then they call 911.
Right. Okay, so now this is just from the prosecution's opening statement, but this stood out to me, and it did make, now they both well, I'll get into my thoughts on the defense, but was one point that stood out to me. He says, he talks about John's injuries. He says he had an arm injury, swelling of the eyes, and he says, you're going to hear from emergency responders that Karen said, I hit him. That was now it'll be interesting to see if we actually hear that from first responders.
Yeah. I'm curious about that too. And I will say, like, I think that's the crux of the argument for innocence and for not guilty. And let me just say this. For me, I just want to put this out here really quickly, and then I'll be quiet. What I'm listening to in this trial is, I want to see if A, the state can prove their case, B, if the defense can interject reasonable doubt, and then C, if Karen Reed is actually innocent. There is a very big difference between an acquittal and actual innocence. Okay, so because sometimes an acquittal just means that the jury doesn't feel like the state proved their case, right? But an actual innocence is something very, very different. And, there are people who truly, like, all the way with their whole ass souls, believe that Karen Reed is actually innocent, and that something else entirely happened. And that's what I'm curious to see.
Me too. And that's what the trial's for, because honestly, people have made up their minds before there's even evidence presented. So that's why I'm glad that we did not look at it before, so we can truly just look at what's presented.
Right. And this is what a trial is for. This is where justice happens. So all the stuff like we're seeing right now, for example, in Sebastian Rogers' case, now is not the time to, so while the law enforcement's doing their job, the time to judge law enforcement's job on their investigating of a case is at the trial.
Exactly.
Because that's when their evidence is presented. Their investigation is presented, and then you judge. Did they do a good job? Did they follow all of the leads? Did they, that's where I'm at. So I think that's a good thing to point out while we're covering this trial.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can we judge law enforcement in Sebastian Rogers' case when we don't know anything?
We don't know what they're doing exactly.
They're not going to freaking tell us.
They're
not telling no damn ass PIs either. I'm just going to say that for the record.
Welcome, P. Lola's mom. And then Becky. So Karen claims, and I'll get into that in a second, like with her defense and what they said. But she was looking, she claims she woke up around 4. He wasn't home, and they were looking for him. So that is why. Okay, let me keep going. So when he goes on to talk about when John was moved, there was grass under his body, 6 inches of snow. They did take him to the hospital. There was a warming process. I had never heard of that. They got his body temp up to 80 at one point. Then he goes on to say that Karen made self-harm statements. That's another thing that stuck out to me a little bit. He talks about footage of Karen's car on the right rear side. There will be a bartender, a couple of friends testifying who observed John and Karen going to the car, a pizza shop owner. And then he goes on to talk about Fairview Road, which is where Jen was talking about, where the Alberts live, where John was found. Shortly after midnight, snow starts to stick. And let's see, he says going through every witness versus during testimony. Oh, that was my note. Yeah, I didn't like the way he went through each individual witness. I wish he would have just painted the picture, told us the story without interjecting all the names and stuff, because I felt like it became a little confusing. And no one at the house party ever sees John come inside. What's the deal with that, Jen? He was never actually seen inside the party?
So from what I understand, that's where the other part of the issues come in. Is that Karen says she dropped him off and he went in. The people at the party or at the house, the after party, the after get together, whatever, say that they saw Karen's car, but they never saw him get out or her get out. And they all just assumed that they changed their minds and left.
Okay.
That's the other part of it.
Confusing.
Yeah, so, I was confused too. I was like, wait, yeah.
Okay, so then I wrote 5 a.m. Jennifer McCabe gets a phone call from John's niece. Karen comes into the niece's room frantic. John never made it home. At 5 a.m., Karen calls Miss Roberts. John didn't come home. And the prosecutor claims that Karen was making statements like he was hit by a plow. He must be dead. He's probably out there, had been hit by a plow. Karen goes to McCabe's home. McCabe drives it back to John's, and they mention her cracked tail light. Miss Roberts, Miss McCabe, and Miss Reed go looking for John. Karen is the only one who sees John. Apparently, they pull up to the house, and the prosecutor says that Karen sees John immediately, starts screaming. There he is, and runs beeline straight to his body. The prosecutor also claimed that the defendant at that point asked McCabe to Google how long it takes to die when you're left out in the cold. Now, there is going to be a dispute about this, and when this Google happened, and in my notes I wrote, that's suspicious, that's weird, that sound that's like,
yeah, that's yeah.
How is that? How is there a question over when that happened? I know there's
I guess we have to get into, I guess they're going to, I don't know. Okay, so here's where there could be a question of when that happened. Perhaps there's something going on with the data as far as what cell tower. So if the allegation is that that this happened at the God, Jen, what the hell is wrong with you? Their name starts with an A. You've said it like
Alberts.
27 times. At the Alberts house, right? Then theoretically the close, and she was on data, which she would be, right? Because or she be one of two things: either signed in on the Albert's Wi-Fi like automatically, because if you're in range and you've ever signed in before, your phone will automatically connect, or she would be on the nearest cell tower, right? So if the only thing that I can think of is the why there would be a question of when it was done is because of something that where the service pinged from. That's the only thing that I can think of. But also, I'm clearly struggling thinking about people's names right now. So don't rely on me a whole lot. There's probably some other better, more reasonable explanation, but I can't think of it right this second. I'm sorry.
But the thing for me is, like, I can understand that experts are going to argue over it. I can understand Wi-Fi versus data and all of that stuff, but I don't really understand typically things like this, like something that happens on electronics, time stamped. It's a black and white fact. So it's going to be interesting to hear them argue that out. And it's very important to me. That's
maybe that is important. Maybe the phone was set to roam or something, or put into airplane mode at some time, and there's a question about the timestamps. I don't know. I don't know. I know that one time when I very first got this computer, the desktop, I signed into Wi-Fi. I've never had to fix or adjust a clock in Windows going all the way back to I don't know, like Windows 2000 or maybe even 1990. I can't even remember. I don't ever remember having to do it. But this time, what's weird is when I signed in, it had me in the wrong time. And I was connected to Wi-Fi, and I was looking at the clock and on the bottom of my thing, and I had to adjust it. So
Apple usually does, like that town where the Apple phone was created, Cupertino or whatever. Maybe it was that in that time zone. Is that what it was?
That I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Well, no, not my phone. This happened with my computer. I should have never had to fix it on Windows ever. It should have automatically done it, but it didn't. And I was in some other. There you go. Disorder in the court has it. Thank you. So.
If the data source is an app, it's not super reliable. If it's straight from Google, it's more reliable. But I'm thinking about like the people who investigate the phone itself. And I don't know. We'll just have to wait for the experts. I'm not an expert, so I'm going to have to wait.
I'm curious what she used, because if she literally Googled that using Google is very, very good. Google is a snitch. I'm just going to tell y'all right now, Google is a whole snitch, and they're real. And when people look things up, they cannot, when they get up to testify, the experts, they can't say, unless you used a fingerprint or facial recognition to unlock your phone, then maybe it'd be easier to see who was on it. But you could have done that and handed your phone off. So they don't really talk about who did it, but they're really good. Usually Google is really good about time stamping things.
Well, we'll get into the timeline of the defense, because I have marked it down and I want to do a graphic for that. And that's what I was going to say to Lori too. We're going to get into the defense's claims in a minute, Lori, but I'm definitely hearing that and seeing that and taking that into account for sure. But Wolfie, I love you. You're so sweet. It was deleted from Google. They did say it was deleted. They found it when they took her phone. Okay, but let me continue, because we got a lot to go through and I don't want to get too lost on one thing. But okay, so now I'm really wanting to talk to you about the defense, but I got to get through my notes from this. He brings up an incident in Aruba where where John was in the lobby, and I wrote Marietta. I think that's her name. I was like, I said, okay.
See, I knew if you started talking, I would start to remember this stuff.
So, I wrote, Marietta runs to O'Keefe in the lobby, gives him a hug, and points him to his room. The defendant, apparently, based on the prosecution's, what they say, the defendant starts yelling, screaming, swearing. The children also claimed that there was a 20-minute screaming match afterwards back in the room. Karen insists that John was cheating, making out versus... He says they were just hugging. They're family friends, known each other for a long time. He goes on to talk about the drinking glass that John had in his hand, that we'll be able to see that at the, with the evidence, plastic from the tail light in him, I'm assuming, with the evidence. Injuries on his arm, a skull fracture, which caused swelling from his eyes. Okay, so that's all I got for that. But now the defense, which he did so much of a better job than the prosecution. Jen, what do you think? Like, he really had me like listening to hanging on to every word. I could easily follow what he was saying.
God help me. Yes, you're right. I thought the defense was far more effective.
Yeah, me too. I agree. Okay, so let's start with this. His name's David Yannetti. His very first words were, Karen Reed was framed. Just like that. That's how he started it. The address where John was found was well known to be a well-connected. Wait, I'm sorry. The address where John was found was a well-known and well-connected law enforcement family, the Alberts. He goes on to say police did no real investigation. They had tunnel vision on Karen. It was Brian Albert's front yard, almost right under his bedroom window. He says this man is trained in emergency situations and was told another law enforcement officer was unresponsive at his home and he never came out of his house. I was like, whoa. Blue said, yeah, very captivating. I agree.
I was curious. See, I don't know what I've seen a little bit of the hearings and stuff in the back and forth, so I kind of know what the defense, their defense is, but like I don't know all the things, and I was a little bit like, whoa, when he said that. I wasn't ready.
I agree. And let me ask you, Jen, just because someone put it in the chat, why frame her though? Let's just think of try to keep our minds as open as possible. I don't have an opinion either way until I see the evidence. But what would be a reason to frame her?
That's the part I can't get past. Okay. What would be there's a couple of things that I can't get, that I don't understand. The first thing is, what would her motive be? I mean, I know they're not saying that it's obviously it's not premeditated. It's not first degree murder. I get it, that it was, but what would it sounds to me like what they're saying, that the prosecution is saying is that it was an accident that she hit him. She didn't actually mean to hit him initially, but then she did hit him. And then it sounds to me like what they're saying is, she saw it and she was like, man, F that fool. I'm tired of his, you know what I'm saying? I'm sick of his crap. I don't understand what her motive would be. What's her motive? What's her motive for not rendering aid, right? What does she get? She doesn't need his money. She's successful all on her own, you know. I don't understand that. And I also don't understand, what would be, conversely, I don't understand what would be their reason to frame her. And this is the right way to be, Allie. We shouldn't know why. But obviously they have a theory, so let's see if they can prove it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can understand. Lori says because the Albert brother and cousin beat him to a pulp and they're not going to jail, or because we get into the dog. Is it they don't want to get in trouble because there was some kind of brutal accident, so they just try to cover it up to keep anybody. Maybe there's other reasons they don't want anybody looking too close at them. I'm not really sure. We just have to, I guess, wait.
We're just going to have to wait and see, I guess, because I can't figure it out either.
Yeah, me neither. I could think of a couple possibilities. Hippie Chick says, because if an accidental unaliving happened in that house, they start coming up with the frame job after the fact. It didn't start out to unalive him and frame her. Interesting. Hey, Tara Boom. Tara Boom says, Jen McCabe searched at a 227 Safari at her own home, which isn't where John was. Karen didn't search that. We're going to get into that timeline. So let me go on a little bit.
Yes.
Brian Albert's front lawn. I already read that part. Okay. So he said pretty much immediately they knew that Canton police couldn't be the ones investigating this because Brian Albert's brother, Kevin, works for Canton police. So state police took over. And the person who took over was this Proctor, the lead detective, with deep ties to the Albert family. So deep, as a matter of fact, Proctor's mother calls them her second family. And there were regular updates given to Kevin Alberts, throughout the investigation. He says the detective never went in the Albert family home, never even tried to look there, focused immediately on Karen Reed, and he kept making the point that she's this outsider, right? She's not from Canton. Karen Reed, the outsider, she's not one of us. He says there was, he goes on to say that this Proctor guy was talking on his private personal phone about an investigation and revealed feelings about Karen and called her names, which was, he told his friends he wished that she'd kill herself because remember, she was making claims of self-harm. And this is supposedly in text. He thought that no one was ever going to see these messages. He also says that, he told his buddies, so he hadn't got a warrant yet for Karen's phone, but he went ahead and looked through it anyways and told his buddies through text that he was looking for nudes of her. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He goes on to say, with a dead body on the front porch. So one of the people in the chat says, with a dead body on the front lawn, the homeowner is going to catch a lot of grief. And Proctor says, nope. Homeowner's a Boston cop too. He goes on to say that he falsified the time he took Karen's SUV. He says this is very important. He said that he got the SUV at 5, but they went and got surveillance footage and they actually got it 90 minutes before he claimed. And it wasn't until the defense claims they didn't start finding glass from her taillight until after they already had her vehicle.
That I do remember.
Which, how do they prove that? I mean, I don't know. I guess we're going to have to see, but these are major claims.
Well, they would have, I mean, if they have what they say with the surveillance. Yeah.
Yeah. But how do we know first? I guess we'll have to wait and see when a piece of plastic was turned in.
Or maybe notes from the nurses at the hospital.
Oh.
Maybe one of them wrote something down or didn't write something down. Do you know what I mean? Like when they chart, maybe they, took notice of whether or not there was, glass on his person somewhere.
Oh, that's a good point. I'd like to hear about that. So he'd said that 4 officers searched the front lawn. Police only found pieces of the taillight after her car was seized. That was his exact words. He said the taillight incident actually happened in the garage. And he said that they had video evidence of that. There's little people walking through here. Hold on.
Okay. Let me just say this while the little people walk through. Oh, well, Allie muted. So I better not talk because that means she doesn't want the little people to hear. Duh.
Well, they're already done. I'm in North Carolina. Met a mom. Okay, they're already upstairs.
Okay. I don't know if you didn't want us to hear the little people or you don't want the little people to hear. Because I thought about just talking and then I was like, well, what if she doesn't? I better just shush. And then they were done.
I'm not a fan of letting the kids really hear all the
details of this stuff. Agree. Let them be kids. You're only a kid for so long.
Yeah, for sure. But go ahead. What were you going to say? My last thing was about the tail light, and that the tail light happening in the garage, and that they had video evidence that this happened at 5 a.m., not during whoever potentially hit John. Right. He said that it's on camera, her backing out and hitting his vehicle, I think. Was that what you were going to talk about? Maybe?
No, I was just going to say I'm a terrible driver. And I'm a fine driver going forward. I'm just not good at reverse. And I have broken taillights before. So, if they were to come and look at my vehicles at one point or another, I've been good for several years now, but back in the day. So I think about stuff like this and I wonder, what if this was me?
Yeah.
How do you prove a negative? You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
You can't.
Yeah.
can't. And honestly, I love that you do that because more people need to. I do that too. I almost instantly always put myself like in whatever situation we're talking about naturally, but a lot of people just don't really do that. But you can't prove you didn't do something. Just like when I was accused of making that phone call, how do I say I didn't do? I mean, I tried and I showed what I was doing, but yeah, it's just hard to prove a negative.
I knew right when I heard that phone call that was not Allie. And here's how I know. Because when Allie is really focused on saying something, when she's done speaking, but she has to be really focused. She'll do this at the end. And that person didn't do the at the end. So I knew. And
Yeah.
plus the voice was different. I talked to Allie enough. I know. I was like, that's not Allie. I knew that right away.
Well, you know what? A lot of people complain in the comments about that.
Hmm.
Crafty Chris said, I have a problem that they very rarely refer to John as Officer O'Keefe. He was a Boston police officer after all. Bodine said the same thing.
Hmm.
Lori says, being a state cop, how do you lose the pictures of the crime scene? If she hit him and this is a slam dunk, okay, but why the cops all trying to head of it? I don't know about that, Lori.
Yeah, I don't know about any of this yet. I will say this. I am getting a little bit of the Departed vibes with this case.
Ooh, wait, is that Leo? No,
Yes, yes.
I forget.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Jack Nicholson, and what's his face? Matt Damon.
Well, wait, wasn't they in Boston in that too, or am I crazy?
Yeah, they were in Boston.
Okay, I thought so.
And they caught because I only remember because every time they talk about the state police, I always think of how they referred to them in that movie and other movies in Boston. It's in Black Mass too, Stadies.
Right. Well, you know what? Okay, as far as this goes, what P. Lola's mom said, I never want to be disrespectful to Officer John O'Keefe. He sounds like an amazing man. He truly does. And so, I don't know. I just want to make that clear that I think that so far, just what I've heard in the opening statements, just by the way he's been there for his family and things like that
Yeah,
just says a lot to me. There are men out there who walk out on their own kids every day.
for reals. Now listen, I know in the trailer that I just wrote John O'Keefe, and now that I think about it, when I make the thumbnails for the lives, I will make sure to put Officer John O'Keefe, and because he does deserve that respect. And you know what, I didn't even think about it, but now that you guys are saying that, it makes a lot of sense because it definitely wasn't disrespectful, like, um,
No, I thought you
you know
did.
what I mean,
I know what
intentionally,
you
but
mean.
I can
Yeah,
see how it would come off. So I'm so glad you guys have said something. What
me
does
too.
that mean, Tara Boom? His title wasn't upheld. Like
Because
his
they're not
title.
saying
Oh, yeah, because they're not
officer.
saying it. I got it now. Okay. All the synapses as well, like 8 of them are
Um,
firing.
Hey, Natasha. Okay, so we're about to get into where I want to make
Okay.
like a visual for us. Or this is just
Okay.
interesting to me.
All right.
So he talks about this 2:27 a.m. Google search from Jennifer McCabe. How long to die in the cold? I think there was a typo, but still. Well, he talks about a man named Brian Laughlin. He's a snowplow driver. Brian Laughlin went by the house at 2:30 a.m. and did not see a body. He goes back at 3:30 and sees right where John Officer O'Keefe would have been, he sees a Ford Edge parked there. The Albert family, he claims, one of them drives a Ford Edge. He says the cops ignored him. They didn't ask him. They didn't want to interview him, talk to him. But the defense tracked him down, and they actually took an investigator with the plow driver, and he showed them exactly what he saw. But so Brian Albert claims that he had no contact with anyone but his wife. Here's where the visual and the timeline comes in.
Okay.
Okay, so he actually at 2:22 a.m. calls. Well, first let me say at 2:12, Jennifer McCabe arrives at her home. At 2:22, there was a phone call from Brian Albert, and he claims he had no contact with anyone, but he made a phone call to Brian Higgins, and No one answered. 17 seconds later, Higgins calls Brian Albert back, and they have a 22-second phone call. And then 1 minute later, Jennifer McCabe goes up to her room. She's going up the steps. And then 4 minutes later, 2:27, she Googles how long to die in the cold based on their timeline. Then again, 2:30, plow driver goes through, no body. 3:30, Ford Edge on the side of the house. So that's a very, short period of time that we have a lot of things happening. I'm sorry, this Albert guy, Brian Albert, claiming he had no contact with anyone. 22 seconds. You could say quite a lot in 22 seconds.
Yeah, you can. There's also a call before that. So in between midnight and I think 12:15, there is a call from Jennifer McCabe to Officer John O'Keefe, and he answered it, but I can't remember what that time was. But I just remember, because I know when I was making the video, midnight was when the bar closed. 12:15 is when the three people say they saw Karen Reed's vehicle. But before, in between the 12 o'clock and 12:15, she called, Jennifer McCabe called Mr. O'Keefe, and he answered.
I didn't know about that. So we should do a little graphic.
We're going to, yes.
Yeah, let's do that. So Kathy, you give us your opinion no matter what. I don't care what it is. You are free to it. And Crafty Chris says, I also have suspicion of the judge who has a summer home on the Cape close to the McCabe's. She actually rented an Airbnb to a family friend of the McCabe's or Alberts. So here's the thing that I want to try to be careful of for me personally, looking at this as if I was a jury member, because at the end of the day, Karen's life is in their hands right now.
Right.
And I don't want to get too caught up in these like connections because, in a small town, many people know each other. Mm-hmm. And even though I get suspicious looking at, at some of that stuff, conspiracies and rumors and stuff are different from what they're going to prove in court.
Correct.
So I just, I think it's interesting though, Crafty Chris, and I'm glad you shared. I'm just saying, I'm trying to be careful to like,
we can all, because this stuff would have to be for us to like think about it or consider it. We would have to hear it in the trial.
In the trial, yep.
That's what we're trying to do. Give a completely, unbiased.
Kathy says she knows too much about the case. Katie says, I'm feeling really weird saying this, but this case is harder to understand than Tisha. She doesn't even confuse me like this. Oh, speaking of her, we will be talking Tisha on Jen's tonight.
Yeah, I'm working. Right. Listen, I know you guys can hear the typing or whatever. I'm making a thumbnail. Just give me a sec.
I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so let me get into a little bit more of, this is my last page of notes from the defense opening statement.
Okay.
Officer John O'Keefe was 6'2". The defense says, if he's standing up and hit by a car, his whole chest, torso, hip area is open, right? So if you're hit by a car, you would expect there to be some sort of injury in that area. But there was no torso injury. He said his chest, hips, and legs were pristine.
Oh.
Thank you, hippie chick. So that's interesting to me, Jen, because how could that be?
Yeah, see, okay. Some of the injuries that they described doesn't sound like being hit with a car to me.
Like the bulging, like that,
like it sounds more,
scratching?
I mean, what they're saying is she wasn't going that fast, but his injuries, I mean, and usually there's like road rash just from being, being hit with a vehicle. It usually throws you, so something about that. I don't know.
I agree. It's
I
weird
have to
me.
wait and see.
It's very weird. And okay, so he says his right arm is not pristine though. He's got tons of scratch marks and almost claw marks. And he says we're going to hear from an expert forensic pathologist who's done hundreds of autopsies, maybe thousands. I think he said thousands, that this looked more like animal marks. And then he goes to mention this German Shepherd, Chloe, that was the Albert family dog. But after Brian Albert was called to testify in front of the grand jury, they rehomed the family dog. And they were questioned about her, apparently, during that testimony. Then we have, let's see. He says there's no evidence of any domestic violence. And he said someone, but not Karen Reed, ambushed John O'Keefe. And that is how he ended it. But honestly, like I said, I usually fall on the side with the state just because I can't. Most times I think if we're all the way at trial and they're going to look through all of this evidence, they're going to bring it and we're going to get to see it. So there's not a lot of funny business they can pull if we're looking at everything in black and white. In this one, I don't have an opinion or anything, but just based on the opening statements, the defense was much easier to follow. He did make sense. He made a lot of wild claims that I want to see proof of, but I'm already really torn and intrigued.
Yeah. That's how I'm feeling. Like I need to hear way, 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 way more.
Me too. PBJ said he had no injuries to his lower legs or torso. Exactly. Or his hips, chest. And it's weird. The injuries are definitely suspicious. Kathy says, I'm really trying to keep an open mind. Like you said, evidence before trial isn't the same. No, it's not the same at all. And that's what's so interesting about a lot of these cases being tried in social media before. And this one has been too. Now, we oftentimes see, like Jen was talking, Sebastian's case, people blaming people and making all these assumptions without seeing any evidence. This one, people are still blaming people and not making assumptions. They're just doing it in a little bit of a different way, but people already have their minds made up. And honestly, there's no way that the evidence hasn't even been. Now, sure, some of it has, some things are known, but a lot of the evidence hasn't been shown yet. So try to keep an open mind if you can.
That's where I'm at with it. I'm really trying to keep my mind completely open to any and all possibilities here. Like I have seen in cases where it is a case of actual innocence. Okay. Where, for me that, and after looking at the actual evidence, not just the evidence that was presented in trial, because that evidence is evidence of, it depends on who's presenting the evidence, right? So if the state is the one presenting the evidence, they're going to be presenting the evidence from the case file that they feel shows and proves their case. Whereas the defense will be presenting evidence that shows, what they think happened. Yeah. But then after a trial, all that evidence gets put together, and you can look at all of it. Plus, for the Wesson History, you all the documents. So the entire investigation, all the interviews of all the people are there, even though not all of that was presented at court. So, it's just, but for the most part, I mean, this is just going to be an interesting one because I don't know all the backstory. And so when I'm hearing the evidence being presented by both sides, it will be my first time hearing it.
Yeah, we're totally unbiased, which is so cool about covering it this way. So there's a couple really interesting comments in the chat. First of all, listen to Music City Mom. She said, I backed my car up when my drunk abusive boyfriend was behind me. It was snowing and I didn't see him behind me. He got back up and got in the car and we went home.
I mean, one time, I think I've told this story, when the three oldest were young. They were like, I don't know, 3, 4, and 5, or 2, 3, and 4. They were arguing in the back and I was backing out of the driveway. And this is the ironic part. I turned around and I was already, and I turned to tell them to cut it out. and I didn't brake enough, and I hit the tree. There's a big, I mean, like, y'all, this was a big ass, well established, probably been there 7 years. There was no reason for me to hit that tree. But I wasn't, completely stopped, and I wasn't completely going either, but I was yelling at the kids, and I hit that tree. And I had to, can you imagine? My husband comes home from work and he's like, babe, what happened to the back of the car? Just in the bumper, not the taillight or anything like that. And I had to tell him, and he said, weren't you already looking behind you? How the fuck did you hit a tree? I mean, it's huge, you guys. It was, super embarrassing, but it
I
happens.
watched my mom do that to my dad's car, just like backed right into it in the driveway when I was a kid. That stuff happens. But weren't you already looking behind you?
That's what he said to me. Weren't you already looking behind? And the tree is massive, you guys. It's not like it's a little tiny bush or, just some little sapling that's starting to grow. Like, this was a well-established tree.
Well, well-established tree. It's been there a while. Okay, so just quickly, I wanted to talk about the first two witnesses, which we had Paul O'Keefe, who's John's brother, and maybe I'll play a little bit of this, but and then his wife Erin. And I didn't take notes physically in my notebook for this, but I did jot down a couple things here on the computer just to remember. So he says, his mom calls him at 6:40 a.m. and so Paul and John were actually supposed to get together that day, but remember, this is during COVID. This was just a weekend where nobody had to work and they could actually hang out and see each other. They got to see each other a couple times a month. He has two little ones with Erin. But he says that, Karen was asking, is he alive? Is he alive? And then they asked what he said to her, and he said, I actually blew her a kiss. He thought very highly of Karen. He thought she was an amazing woman, and she became very friendly with Erin too. And there's Erin right there. But I'm going to maybe I'll play this little video, and then we'll end with that. And then, tomorrow we'll be on Jen's channel doing the roundup of what happens. And it's only half a day, right?
Tomorrow is half a day? I think that's right. Yes, correct.
Yeah, I think so. Let me see here. So I have to say, I'm sorry, I can't not say this. Paul O'Keefe is easy on the eyes. Easy on the eyes, in my opinion. Wait till he starts. Like, I don't know, maybe you don't think so, but not necessarily in the screenshot, but when he's talking and just like the vibe of him, and I don't know.
I think both of the O'Keefe guys are good looking.
I agree.
I can't listen. I don't know what it is about a Boston accent, but or Massachusetts accent, I should say. It's not really Boston, but a Massachusetts accent that I can't get enough of. I just love it. Probably because the only accent I have is a little twang, and I feel like that twang is kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, well, you don't have a super strong accent, but I agree with the Boston one, and you still have to watch that movie I told you about, The Town.
Which one?
With Ben Affleck and Blake Lively, remember?
That's right.
I told you. Good.
What did we say that? Okay, let me write that down. Okay.
Write it down.
All right. I'm going to mute so I can schedule this next live. I'll be right. But I'm listening. I'm just going to mute so you don't hear me typing.
Okay. Well, we'll listen to some of this. But Lynn says, I agree, Allie. I think pretty much all the parties in the case are good looking. And Jen, by the way, you guys, Jen's link is in my description because we will be alternating and talking about this on both channels. And also, we're going to have Lynn on at some point, and I hope that you guys will go check out her channel. She's streaming it as well, and so yeah, and we're gonna have Deets on. I'm gonna put her in here. She's done an excellent video, and I haven't watched it because I'm trying to not know the background, but I know that Teresa had Deets on, and they went deep into the story.
And I know Dr. B is like super into this case too, and she knows a lot of stuff too. So does Chasing. It would be nice to have some of the people that are just like, if we could get people that are hard, like solidly on one side or, on solidly on the other, that would be great. Hey, But before I mute again, this is completely off topic, but it's April 2021. These video calls, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
No, wait. Yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember. Something has happened to me, you guys. I don't know what's wrong.
Oh, I can't wait to watch some video calls. I've had a very stressful day, and I will know I'll get some laughs.
Yes. Oh, we gonna laugh.
And maybe are we gonna do the opposite tomorrow, like Karen on your channel, Tisha on mine?
Yes.
Okay, well, awesome. All right, well, the lab with T, Deets, and Anya is so good. That's what I keep blabbing about. Well, I love all of them. I don't really know Nanya as well, but just watching her, I enjoy her personality, and I know that Teresa and Deets are about the facts, so I'm sure that it's probably very good. But I can't watch it till it's over. So, okay, we're gonna press play and listen to some of this, and like I said, this was the first witness. The second one was his wife, Erin. And that's as far as I've gotten for today. But this live was more to go over really opening statements. But I think, this will be interesting for us to hear. So, okay.
Who arrived first? Was it you, your parents, or something else?
I got there first.
And about how long was it, if you know, between the time that you got there and the time that your parents arrived there with Ms. Roberts?
Probably about 45 minutes.
And when you arrived at the Good Samaritan Medical Center, where within the facility did you sort of go?
Emergency room waiting area, lobby.
And at some point, did you, after your parents arrived, did you move from the waiting room area to somewhere else within the hospital?
So when my parents arrived, they brought us, in the double doors into like a little family sitting room.
And about how long was it that you were in the family sitting room before you went somewhere else?
So we were in that waiting room. Doctor and nurse came in and told us that all their efforts to save my brother were unsuccessful and that he had passed away. And then asked if we wanted to go see him, in which we said yes. So we left that room and walked down the hallway to his hospital room.
And that doctor you spoke to, do you recall what the doctor's name was?
Dr. Rice.
And when you say that we went down to the room where your brother was that everyone in the group?
It was myself and my parents, yes.
And Ms. Roberts, did she go as well, or did she?
No, she stayed out in the waiting area.
And as you were making your way down to the room where they had your brother, what if anything occurred along the way?
So I noticed Karen Reed was there. She was being restrained by hospital employees, and she was, screaming out to us, asking if he was alive.
Remember, I mentioned this to you
That
guys.
she screamed out once, more than once, or something?
Several times.
Is he alive? Oh, sad.
Now, at some point, you went into the room where your brother was, correct?
Correct.
And can you describe to the jury sort of what you saw as far as your brother was concerned?
He was pretty banged up. He had his eyes had swelled up. He had a breathing tube in, well, the mask anyway. Blood come down his nose, blood come down his mouth.
Oh my God. I just have to pause because, for one, like, my heart and soul just hurts for this man. I mean, there were several times he was answering questions and getting emotional. It was tough testimony, but also blood coming out of his nose and mouth. And I'm just taking note of like some of the injuries and things that we're hearing, but I'm going to keep playing. I'm going to let Jen though say, and if you have anything to say before we go, keep listening. It's only about 15 minutes total, but we'll pause along the way.
It's sad. The whole thing is sad. I can't, I guess I can't imagine, but the injuries just sound so much more than what they're saying she did. That's
Yeah.
where I'm really stumped at. Like, but listen, I mean, it's not like I stopped and interviewed the tree after I banged into it. And, you know, it's not like I could x-ray it and see internal injuries. And maybe I did damage the tree in a way that I couldn't see visibly. But, yeah, yeah. I don't know. It just sounds like something, I don't know. It just something doesn't sound quite right, but that's just right now, you know?
Yeah. I agree with you. That's exactly where I'm at with it. And yes, we are going to do recaps every night. And I'm into, I was trying to find Music City Mom's comment again, but remember, she said, I hit my boyfriend with a car on accident in the snow, and my drunk, abusive boyfriend, whatever, and he got back up and got in the car and we went home.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And this wasn't just a storm, like a regular snowstorm. This was a nor'easter. And those are like, you know, strong. There's a lot of wind and, you know, it's,
yeah.
you know, so, and it happened on between my birthday and Olivia's birthday, the 28th of January. And then
Aw.
Olivia's is the 29th. There's been a few cases that have happened around my birthday. And it makes me sad because after we cover them, then the next year I'll think about them, you know?
Right. PBJ says, I can just imagine Karen trying to wrap her mind around everything, trying to process what could have happened. Her first reaction wouldn't go to think his friends could do something like that. See, I'm torn because there are moments where I think, damn, maybe it was something else. This doesn't make sense. But then there are moments where I think, why, like, for instance, why does she in the beginning saying, I hit him. Is that true? Did she say that? And some of the other things that they were claiming she was saying, is he dead? Is he dead? And making claims of self-harm, which I guess I could understand that with losing someone like this, but that you love so much. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I'm really torn right now. So I'm just so glad we're doing this with no prior knowledge.
Yeah, me too. I mean, of the case, we have knowledge of how trials go.
We have knowledge about trials, and Jen and I have covered them together,
Yes, we have.
And things, but not like this.
Not like this. No, this is a first one. This is a first. I haven't done one like this in a long time.
And I've never done it. Bendy used to do notes from the jury box back in the day and watch trials, that cases she didn't know at all, and just watch only what was in the trial, which is kind of why I even wanted to do this. But okay, you ready to keep going?
Yes. Okay.
And Teacup, yes, he was still alive. The way I understand it, there was even a warming process, which I've never heard of that, but it's, they had to warm him back up. I think they got his body temperature up to 80 degrees, just based on what was said in the opening. But okay, let's go.
Yeah.
But what really stood out to me was, the eyes. It was almost as if like there were ping pong balls under his eyelids. They were that swollen.
Now, in addition to what you observed as far as his eyes, what, if any, other sort of injuries did you observe on any other part of your brother's body?
I noticed some markings on his arm. Didn't look at his lower torso area at all because he was, covered by a sheet. So most of the injuries that, we observed was to the head area and face area.
And when you say his arm, do you recall whether that was one arm, both arms, or which arm in particular?
He had markings on his right arm. I didn't notice anything on the other side.
You spent some time privately as a family with your brother. At some point you left, is that correct?
Yes, I would estimate we were probably in the room for 20 minutes until we left.
And after about that 20 minutes, you come back out to the hallway, and where are you going?
We went back to the waiting area, trying to figure out, can we leave? Do we leave? So yes, we left. My mother drove with me. My father drove with Kerry Roberts. We went from the hospital at Good Samaritan in Brockton back to my brother's house in Canton.
And if I could just take you back for a moment. So as you exit the room where your brother is and you come back out in the hallway, what, if anything, occurred at that point?
Again, we saw Karen Reed being restrained by hospital employees, screaming the same things. Is he alive? Is he alive? Is he alive?
At any point, either before or after, respond to that screaming that you heard from the defendant?
I actually blew her a kiss.
Now, as far as your relationship,
I gotta pause there. That was so impactful to me. It just said a lot to me about who Karen might be, and I know I shouldn't jump to conclusions like that, but he's gonna go on. I won't say, but what did you say to her? I actually blew her a kiss.
Yeah, which means that they were close.
Yeah.
But then it's his reaction after that. So when he's thinking back, right? So he's thinking back what he did, which is I blew her a kiss. But then his face after he says that is anger.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Like he's mad.
But also, I'm sure I don't know if she did or not, but she is being accused of it, and they have enough evidence, they feel, where they can take her to a trial like this. So, you don't, oftentimes there are cases where a prosecutor won't prosecute, where the DA or whatever won't prosecute because there's not enough evidence and they can't win it in the trial.
Right. Or there is evidence, but they do, or a lot of evidence, but they don't think that they have enough evidence or it's good enough evidence that they can get a conviction.
Right.
So.
Yep. So it says a lot that they would even take it to me, because not only, trials are public.
Yes,
this is
they
where,
are.
like you said, you get to, get to see the investigation. People get to make judgments on all of that stuff. And I don't know, I don't see them taking it if they didn't believe it, and it's hard for me to imagine that even a prosecutor would be in on this big thing, but I mean, I'm sure it happens. So we got to keep open.
And let me say this, because this part I do know. So what it seems like happened is initially hold on, I wrote it down. Let me look at my notes, because this is how I made that. Okay, so let's see.
Excellent.
Initially she was charged with where the hell did I write this at? Hold on. Okay. She was charged with manslaughter, motor vehicle homicide, and leaving the scene of a motor vehicle homicide. That was on February 2nd. She pled not guilty and posted a $50,000 bond. Then on June 9th of 2022, that's when they upgraded the charges to second-degree murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene of a motor vehicle homicide, and the bond was raised to $100,000. So she posted another $50,000 to make the total $100,000. But yeah, I mean, it was a while between what they initially charged her with and then going to the grand jury and with upgraded charges and coming back with an indictment. So, like, I'm not saying that that the things that y'all are saying in the chat about they lied at the grand jury. I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm not saying it did happen. I know I know the defense is going to talk about it. I'm just not there yet. Like, I haven't heard it yet. So I can't weigh in on it yet.
Same, exactly. But there are a couple comments I want to acknowledge. I think we can, like this one on the screen. Lynn says, but on the other side of the coin, they were probably under a lot of pressure to prosecute since he was a cop.
But they were prosecuting her. That's the thing. She had charges on February 2nd. something changed between, and I'm hoping they explain this.
Grand
that
jury.
Right, something happened between February 2nd of 2022 and June 9th of 2022 when they took it to when the grand jury returned an indictment with upgraded charges. And that's the part I want to see.
Yeah, I agree. I do too.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are a couple more I want to read and mention to you I think are interesting.
Okay.
First, though, hey, Shauna, I didn't see you. I wanted to say hi. Solo Sock, the way I understood it, he was warmed to 80 degrees. He was not 80 when they found him, but maybe I misheard. But okay, so Lori says, what bothers me is they never went in the house, never investigated anyone or anything else. And we did hear that today. I know that's not supposed to be evidence, but based on the defense opening statement, he said the detectives never went in that house, and that bothers me too. Why? Wouldn't that be one of your first things when you find somebody dead in the yard out front? I mean, not to say that like it sounded cold the way I said it, but that, like, to me, I don't know. That is weird.
Yeah, it does. It seems that there's a lot of issues in this case, which is why I'm curious how it got to this point. So this is why I'm so curious about what the state is going to put on. You know, I'm going to listen to it the way that a juror is supposed to listen to it. It is the state's burden to prove. The defense doesn't have to prove anything. The burden is on the state, and they're the ones that have to convince me. So that's a high bar for me. Reasonable doubt, beyond reasonable doubt, is a high burden. And so I'm going to wait. I'm going to listen to all of the testimony. I'm going to look at all the evidence that the jury gets to look at. Obviously, there'll be some stuff we won't get to see because it'll be, too graphic for, them to stream, but that's okay. I think I'll be okay not seeing that.
Me too. Now, how do you feel about Tara's question on the screen? I think it was, I'm on another screen. I'm creating a poll for you guys, but I think it was, do you feel like she was overcharged after today?
I mean, I'm not there yet. I don't know yet how I feel about that. Like, I guess for me, I'm not swayed by anything that was put on today that makes me think, okay, yeah, she did it. Because part of the argument from the state is that there was some kind of, like, I guess, argument too, and that precipitated this. And what I can't figure out is, how did nobody, maybe not in the house, but around the house? Like, I'm telling you right now, the people that live behind me, they get into it at least twice a week. And I can hear it from inside the house. So I will go out there and pretend like I'm having a cigarette just to make sure things are okay and be nosy. And then and then if there's no need, then there's no, I don't involve myself if it's just an argument. But you see what I'm saying? Like, I can hear it. And I know that my neighbors around here can hear it too. So,
well, that's scary. I don't like that, but
they're just always into it. They're a volatile couple. That's the one I told you with the pit bull that I saved because he was almost got out. Mm-hmm.
Aw. Mm-hmm. PBJ says many cases, have corruption like this, and the DA has convinced the victim's family someone's guilty. Briggy B says they were pissed because she was fighting back. They upped the charges with no new evidence at the grand jury. The CW has said that themselves, the Commonwealth. Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about Turtle Boy Debbie Doodles. I honestly don't even care about that. I don't know. Like, based on what I've seen, I just don't want to even give him attention. I don't know him. I don't know anything about it, but maybe I'm wrong there, and maybe I'll get into that at a later date. But right now, they did find some text. Nurse, go ahead, Bindi. I want to hear what you
say. I'm just not there yet. Like, me and Allie are just discussing stuff, but this is so early in the trial that it would be for somebody, for me and Allie, who don't know all the backstory, don't know all the interconnections, only are listening to what is presented in court. I don't have a feeling yet, because there's not been enough evidence put on. In my opinion, if I were to vote right this minute based on what was put on today, of course I would have to let her go, because the state has not met their burden, right? And that's who the onus is on, is the state, not the defense. I'm not expecting the defense to work miracles or anything like that. I'm interested in what they're going to, because they've raised a third or what do they call it? Yeah, a third. What is it called, Allie? Help me. A third party defense, or third suspect defense, whatever it is, alternate suspect defense. Bottom line is, that's their burden of proof. Is the state's the one who has to prove it to me, not the defense. So, and it's their job now. So I'm listening.
And so remember, you guys, we don't know. Like, I don't know anything else about the case. All I know is what we've seen today. And honestly, like I said, the defense's opening statement was much more impactful on me than the prosecution. I'm just trying to keep an open mind. But Lynn says, I think she was initially overcharged, but not sure now. And then PBJ says, I like that you two don't know much, because it gives us a glimpse of the jurors' thinking. That's interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know much about this trial. That is for sure. So
me neither. And I know less than Jen, but okay, we'll just watch the rest of this, and then I'll let you guys go, because we got lots more tonight we're doing. So okay,
I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette while we listen to this. I don't know why I didn't just put that in the back chat. Sorry.
That's okay. No, don't be sorry. Okay.
With the defendant, Ms. Reed, prior to January 29th, 2022, how would you characterize it?
I thought we had a good relationship. I held her in very high regard. I thought she was a good influence on my niece and nephew. I appreciated all the help that she was providing to my brother with the kids. We'd go out together as, couples a couple times. She became very friendly with my wife, but I'd say overall we had a good relationship.
As far as those feelings that you had in relation to the defendant prior to January 29th, 2022, had expressed those to either the defendant or any member of her family?
Yes. So Christmas Eve of 2021 was the first time I met her parents. I hosted Christmas Eve's house. I met Miss Reed. I offered to help Mrs. Reed, bring some things in from her car. And as we were walking to the car, I said, I just want to tell you, I think your daughter's great. I think very appreciative of what she's done for the kids and helping my brother.
Now, turning back to that day of January 29th, you go back out to the waiting area, is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, happened when you got out there?
I saw her father, Bill Reed, come into the hospital. He was picking up Karen as we were pretty much exiting the hospital to head back to Canton.
And did you have any conversation with him?
I did not.
Now, you indicated that you drove with your mother back to Meadows Ave where your brother lived, is that correct?
That's correct.
And Ms. Roberts drove with your father back to the same location, is that correct?
That is correct.
And as far as your understanding sort of on the drive back, where were the kids? Where was Kaylee and Patrick?
So Kaylee was picked up by Mike Camerano, who's Kaylee's best friend's father. Patrick was at a sleepover the night before, so he was still with the family of the house where he slept the night before.
I have to take a second.
You mentioned that drive from your house.
And honestly, we don't have to watch this whole video. I really just wanted you to hear how he felt about Karen. Listen, I can't listen to this without acknowledging these children and all the grief that they've been through. And, you know, I don't need to look any closer at them, their lives, where they're at now. That, you know, I don't want to do that at all. But I just have to say, these kids lost both of their parents. And then their uncle, who took them in and gave them a loving, safe home. Now, one of them has to come home from a damn sleepover and find out. I mean, it hurts my heart so much. I can't. And I want to I think that we'll wrap up the video here. I just want to talk for a second about what you guys are talking about in the chat, which is if they would come in. So K-Pick says, all I'm saying, well, and it goes back a little bit. Blue says, I understand. There was talking with Neat and says, you know, having a dead body in your yard, in my mind, would be extending circumstances that it would allow them to enter the house. Because remember, they did not ever even go in the Albert's home. Neat says, not necessarily, but just trying to figure it out myself. And then K-Pick goes on to say, all I'm saying is anyone in this chat, if you ever have a body in your front yard, I promise they're coming in that house one way or another, even if it's just to bring just to your living room, they're coming in to look. And I have to say, just based on my experience with law enforcement, which I have a lot of it. Remember, I'm like out of addiction. I lived many years in addiction. I got I was at many parties that were busted by cops, many places that have been searched, had my vehicle searched a number of times, many friends who did real serious time. And I could never, ever, ever imagine a circumstance where a body would be, at least the cops that I'm used to dealing with, they would be coming in that house. That is interesting to me. It really is. And I have to say, if this is a well-known law enforcement family, maybe that's why they didn't. Maybe they either trusted them, didn't want to cause them any trouble. I'm not really sure. But just based on my experience, and that's just my personal experience in the drug world, which is very different from your average person, average adult who's out there just doing, life, living their life. That is weird to me. You don't even go in, and this is in the very front yard. I don't know. Jen says, you're right. They're coming in, especially if the body was out at a bar with the people in the house the night before. I agree. Who is this guy again? I know he's a cop, but was he a close friend? No. So the guy that was on the stand that we were watching just now, that is Officer O'Keefe's brother. And his name is Paul, and his wife's name is Erin. And he was the first witness called by the Commonwealth today. I just really wanted you guys to hear how he felt about Karen. He was thankful for Karen. She was a big help, a good influence on his niece and nephew, helped a lot with the kids. He literally said when he first saw her and they were taking her to the hospital, he blew her a kiss. And, he thought very highly of her. So I don't know. It just says a lot to me. That's just where I'm at. That's just not like it's enough to make a decision how I feel about the case, but there have been impressions made. Some of these things have made impressions on me. The defense opening statement was much better than the prosecution, but I'm not going to let that sway me. It's not evidence. I want to see the facts. I want to know the facts. I'm very curious about the Google search. That makes no sense to me. And also, why is this Albert guy lying about having that phone call? Why would you lie about that? So that's
right. And I can understand them not going in initially because of because it being an officer, right? And but what I can't understand is not going at all.
Yes.
That's about that does give me pause. And that was for the kids, babe, when you were saying that about the kids. They're going to be testifying.
Oh my God, Jen. Is that going to be streamed? I hope it's not.
I think that the audio will likely be streamed, but not the video. Their faces won't be shown because they're minors.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh my God. So what are the major things you walk away with from today? And then I think we'll wrap it up and see you for see you over on your channel tonight, but I'm very curious, like what were the biggest impressions? Like I just named a couple things that really stood out to me. What about for you from today?
I mean, to hear the accusation that she said repeatedly that she hit him, that is, I have questions about that. I want to hear the full context.
Yes.
And then I want to understand the way that this investigation took shape. I want to hear all the things. I want to understand this Google search. I shouldn't say Google search. What I should say is I want to understand this search on her phone that she allegedly did. And I want to hear, there's a lot that I'm just not there yet. I'm not firmly convinced one way or the other, but if I were actually a juror right now and the state rested its case today, I would have to say not guilty because,
there's been no evidence shown. I agree with that. Now, that's another big takeaway for me too, that it just like left my mind. You're right. I hit him. I need to know more about that. And yeah, Shelly says, I wonder if she questioned.
If it was a question, like, did I hit him? Yeah. And Harlot, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the prosecutor said it in his opening statements. When he mentioned the fight in Aruba, the argument between Officer O'Keefe and Karen took place in front of the children, and he said they would be testifying.
Oh, you're right. Yes, he said he went through. He basically, when he started his opening statement, he said, what I'm going to do here is give you a map connecting all these witnesses because there's a lot of people involved. And
I remembered and I didn't even take notes. Look at me.
Yep, you're right. Let me see where it says it. What exactly he said. He said, basically, can't find it in my notes right now, but I remember it was something like after this incident downstairs, they came back and argued had a screaming match for 20 minutes.
Yeah, in front of the kids. I remember, because that is the part that I remember thinking about, I mean, it always gives me pause when that kind of stuff is brought up because, and to have the kids have to testify to that. Because I think of the arguments that me and my husband have been in over the 29 years that we've been together. And I mean, y'all are familiar with my brand. You know that I have a slick mouth and a sharp tongue, and I'm not proud of it. And there have been times when I've been mad and I've said some things, and if my kids were ever called up there to testify to the things they'd heard, well, I'm just saying,
Well, yeah, everybody fights like that. Oh, absolutely. You ain't wrong. I've literally been like, I'm running away. Y'all are making me crazy. I
think I've yelled out a couple of times. I'm going to see what I can do about getting into witness protection. Changing my name. I'm not telling y'all nothing. Had it.
I'm out. No, but that is my current thing right now. I'm like, that's it. I'm running away. I'm going to summer camp. I'll be back.
You can run away to my house. It's fun over here. There's no kids.
Dude, can you imagine? Come to summer camp at your house? That'd be awesome.
Oh my God. Camp Bindi Lou. Day drinking, true crime.
I love it.
And tanning.
We'll have to do that sometime.
Yeah, we will.
You live in the Floridas too. You're right. Tanning, we'd have a great time. That'd be awesome. All right. Is this the lady that wrote a book about her husband? Legendary? No, but you know what? She does kind of resemble her a little bit. The woman that wrote the, book about grief for her kids. What is her name?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then she ended up and then now she's accused of murdering the husband. Yeah.
Corey something, maybe. I think that's what I don't know, you guys. But okay.
Don't ask us questions like that. Corey Richards.
There we go.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so let me see here. I know that we're going to be doing calls on Jen's at 9. Mm-hmm. And if let me see. I'm going to put it in the chat, but it's also in the description box. I want to check to see if Melissa has a live, and then I
She
want to
does.
also,
She has a live right now at
okay.
7:45.
So let's share that, Melissa. And then I want to share Lynn's because she's going to be doing a lot of coverage of this. Also, Daybell. And I hope, Jen, I was thinking, I want to see if Lynn will come on. Teresa,
Yes.
Keith, Amber, she's doing Karen Reed.
Oh,
remember?
yes. All of our favorites.
Yep. And then also Will. I'd like to have him on because he has he's, already set in how he feels, and he feels very strong about it, but I still want to hear.
And I will say this for the glare. I remember the live that got the glare interested in this. It was Deets on the Streets. And the live was not actually about Karen Reed or anything true crime related. And I remember he was up on panel with Deets and Chasing, and they were talking to him about the Karen Reed case. And then he started looking into it. And I mean, so we're talking about, back last year, like maybe October, November, December, somewhere around in there, or maybe at the very beginning of this year. But I remember it.
That's crazy. Well, I dropped all the links to all those channels. Will, Deets, Amber, Melissa, Teresa, of course, Bendy's, Disorder in the Court, the ones that we mentioned here. Definitely check those out. I think you guys will like them all. And then thank you for being here, Trio Girl Mom. And Patricia says, I haven't seen you guys comment too much, so I wanted to read your comment. Patricia said, this case was driven by shame, rage, and alcohol, in my opinion. But all right, I'm going to let you guys go, and I will see you over on Bendy, the Explainers.
I can't believe I haven't changed that. I'm just going to leave it. I don't even know where that came from, but whatever it was, it's funny, and I'm leaving it forever.
Kathy said, just tell Glare we don't want to hear about Turtle Boy. I'm going to reach out to him. I'm going to do some reaching out to people and stuff, and I'll let you guys know. And then I love the intro, Jen. Can I just say again, excellent freaking job.
Play it again if you want to. Play it.
Yeah, let's.
You have I gave you the thing. You're not going to get a copyright strike. I added you to Epidemic Sounds. You good. I need to give you, don't let me forget to give you the login and the password for that account. So if you want to download music to listen to have in your videos, you can.
Thank you. Okay.
And I don't have to pay it again until I think May something. So.
Well, I'll help you when you do.
No, don't worry about that. We'll talk about that offline. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about that.
Okay. And please watch this intro. It is so good. It's just so good. But okay, I'm going to end with that, and then I'll see you guys over at Jen's tonight. And thank you for everything. And I love you, Bendy, and I'll see you.
Love you too, babe. Bye.
I can't just play the intro. I'm crazy. I have to grab it.
You have to get it to the YouTubes.
Mm-hmm. I was thankful it downloaded. Like, I was thinking, my luck, it's not going to freaking down.
Well, if it didn't, I would have done it. I would have shared my screen because I have it on my tubes.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. All right. I'll see you tonight. Or I
might
see you. Okay.
Bye.
Turn on my
you.